Just anoint the end of that cam with a bit of molybdenum paste so that lever runs smoothly over it. Now I think that'll do. I think that'll be fine. Well, we'll find out anyway. If the flash doesn't work once it's all together, we'll know what the story is. I'll know what to blame. These two components have to be assembled together, and that's a very fiddly task. You need two pairs of tweezers and a lot of patience usually to get this right. That spring has just popped off just to make life more interesting. I have to get that back into position now. It's not an easy thing to deal with on a good day. Let's see if we can come in a bit. Right. So where are we? Now I've got to remember which way round this goes. That way, I think. Yes. And where are my good tweezers? No, they didn't surface. Never mind, I'll have to make do with some less than best tweezers. Right, see if we can get this together. So hold these two pieces together, get this loop of the spring and hook it round behind that lever, which I've just achieved. That usually doesn't go as smoothly as that. Now I want a little touch of molybdenum on that point so that it latches and unlatches smoothly. Zoom you back out. Ooh. Okay. Okay, that looks almost doable. Two standoffs go on here. Oh, I'm going to get that spring on first. Let's shift that standoff out the way. A pair of tweezers that look like they're capable of doing the job. Not ones with bent tips. Always deeply suspicious when things go on correctly first time when they normally don't. This, if I was going to break something, I would damage that, so I'm a bit suspicious that this is moving as freely as it should. Oh, it's covered in grime. I have to get that little spring back into position. It's got an unusual amount of bounce to it. I don't particularly like that. Let's get a screw in and see if we can figure out what's going on. That's our stuff. Right. Yeah, so far so good. Let's get the other levers in place and see if that will work. That's free. It seems okay. Let's try cocking the shutter. It will swing that across. That will drop behind it to hold it in place. That releases smoothly. That looks good. So the B lever, this is the B lever, and the B lever's job is to hold the shutter open while you hold your finger on the shutter release when the shutter has been set to B, which I think stands for bulb, and that dates back to the time when shutters were held open with a rubber bulb and a long piece of hose. Or so the story went. Well, that just stopped recording. I think I just hit the file size limit. Just getting this spring hooked behind its post correctly, and it's an awkward task. Awkward task when you haven't got your best tweezers. Right. That latches correctly on both the B and M and the X sync. It looks appropriate. Right, so I have to find a spring for that shutter release lever now and clean up the main lever, check it for any damage, and then assemble things. I'll find a spring. Well, I had a hunt round to see if I had any loose springs, but I do not. So I'm going to have to steal one from another lever. So I need to look and see how the spring is wrapped around that post. Okay. Oh, didn't really want to come off. There it is. There's the spring off the post. Or it was there a second ago. Where did it go? I don't believe it. I don't know why it took off. Doubtless I'll know more when I revisit that and look at the video. That spring just took off into the distance. For no apparent reason. And now I'll need another one. Right. Okay. Let's see how that can be awkward to get on. Okay. Not losing this one yet. Right, so we have a shutter release lever complete with a spring. Now the spring's doing its best to get away. Let me get that settled in place firmly before it disappears into the distance like its brethren. Ooh. Is that cursed? That's better, that's settled. Our high-speed spring is correct. That's quite good. I need to clean this plate and then we can test it. If the shutter works first time correctly, I'd be very pleasantly surprised, given the number of glaring problems that we started off with and the likelihood that something's been bent or broken that I haven't yet spotted. So far my only casualty is losing one spring after carefully finding one spring to replace the one that was missing. It pinged off into the Never Never while I was congratulating myself on having done such a good job. Let's get this setting lever correctly installed in place. The main lever, as it's described in the Compur service manual. Spring hooked into its correct position. And it's looking like it might even work. Have to get this spring settled into place. And surprise, surprise, it doesn't want to go in place. That's better. It springs over its post, but not very convincing to me. Okay, the shutter is cocked. I'll clean the main. This is the speed cam that controls the speeds of the shutter. It also sets things like the B lever as well. And tensions the high speed spring for the 500th of a second speed. It's tensioned here. Now let's see if this can be swung into place. Get that lever out of the way. Okay, looks like at B. The shutter does work at B. That's tenths per second. That feels a bit slow to me. I'll wait till I've got the front plate on with the smart speeds and we'll compare that. I may have to muck with the position of the retard gear train to get the speeds correct. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. But I want to see if the dials, if the shutter works at all speeds, even if not accurately immediately. Right, so we have this little locking screw here. This lock needs to be turned into position. Previously it was not correctly in position and the front of the camera was floating. Front of the shutter rather. Well, that's a bit more promising. Now I'd say those speeds are about right. Alright, it's stuck. Why did it stuck? Okay. Let's try that. Oh, I don't think I'd cocked the shutter all the way across. That was my problem there. Not quite convinced about that speed. Now that's definitely slow. Might not even run on 1 second. No, it does. Definitely slow. So I'll have to adjust the position of the retard gear train to get that correct. With these shutters you can tell if things are correctly positioned by the 1/25th and the 10th of a second speeds. It's just on the cusp of being correct. It's not reliable. Those speeds are all over the place. Yeah. Something's not happening there. I would suspect that the retard gear train is failing to position correctly. Let's open the front and just have a quick look. Sometimes the arm fails to drop back in. That should be a 25th of a second. It's like, oh yes, that arm, it controlled the pallets that I bent. It's not locating correctly there. It may be too high or too low. It's not consistently staying where it should be. That should be a 25th of a second, but this was dropping underneath that plate, which engaged the pallet slightly. So I need to take that speed cam off and have a look and see if I can see what's happening. It's certainly something to do with that arm. It's not sitting at the correct height. I suspect it's slightly low because I did have to bend it up, and I suspect I didn't bend it up quite far enough. So I'll try bending it slightly more. You have to be cautious with that. That lever is actually quite stiff. It may even be hardened, easily broken. I'll try that again. And that looks good. Yeah, the high-speed spring. Is it working? I don't think it is. No, something wrong there. That might be damaged. I know it was in the wrong position previously. It actually looks a bit short. I'll have to compare it with another one and see if I can determine what's going on there. There's no practical way that the end of that spring could have fallen off. Some clown could have cut it off if they didn't know what they were looking at. No, I think it's about alright. I'll try that again. Maybe just slightly bent. Let's try this again. There's no tension there. It should be quite stiff to move from the 500th down to the 250th, and you certainly shouldn't be able to move back when that's cocked. So that spring is not right. Alright, it'll have to come out. Now we'll just remove the main lever if we can. Remove the shutter release lever. and remove all of this. Okay. So, with the B lever, it's spring, the MX lever, the two screws that hold this plate down, off the MX lever, cock that, that might hold things in place. That comes off, and the spacers come off. Our flash sync lever has to come off. This spring has to come out, and I want to compare that with another one because it appeared to me that it did not tension up. Oh, that's a very different beast, isn't it? What else have we got? That one's quite short. Yeah, that must be out of something different. Yeah. Yeah, this one would be under no tension. It wouldn't tension up. Yeah, that's just buggered. This is out of a different shutter, I would say it, I guess. Now this one I think we'll use. This is nice and shiny. If we hadn't replaced this spring, the shutter would have continued to function, but the 500th speed wouldn't have even come close. It would have been, for all practical purposes, the same as the 250th speed. There just wasn't any extra tension from this spring. Now that is quite possibly a result of the misassembly. We already know that that was misassembled. That flash lever is not as free as it should be there. That's better. Alright, your trials and tribulations of dealing with stuff other people have dealt to. I don't normally have to go through this much trouble to service a camera. This one just had an awful lot of things wrong with it, and they weren't just the usual they weren't just the results of old age. They were all due to misassembly, which is quite unusual. You don't normally get that. This camera has eaten up far too much time. Want to clip in behind there. Why not? That's better. Where are we? Can you still see me? Yeah, after a fashion. Check those screws, make sure everything's done up tight. We'll have a shutter release lever. You can see I'll have to go back through my emails and see if I can glean from them any hint of the history of this particular camera. Must have hit the file size limit there. Camera just shut down. Okay. I'm interested in what happens at the 500 speed. Oh yes, that's a bit more positive. Oh yes, that's definitely doing something now. Okay, so our speeds are apparently good. I'll put this cover on and put it in place and run through my speeds again. I'm not closing the shutter up for the last time by any means yet, but I do want to see how it behaves. That's good. At 500th of a second, it's extremely hard to see shutters firing. You probably couldn't see anything. But it did open. Yeah, what's the 25th and the 10th like? That's very so that was more like an 1/8 than a 1/10, but it's not ridiculously out. So I might need to adjust the speeds yet, but basically it's functioning, and the B setting does work reliably. Ooh, and what was that? I wasn't convinced that that closed as soon as I took my fingers off the shutter release. Alright, I think that's it for today. I'll finish this up tomorrow. Alright, I have my shutter. I've made a slight adjustment to the speeds. I'm quite happy with the speeds, and I'm quite happy with the way the shutter's working now. So I'm going to finish closing this up. So now I have to fit the outer case, the rack, connect up the flash sync, of course, and it shall be done. But first I want to clean up this outer case and the rack and the detent for the aperture settings, just to make sure there's no old grease, grit, anything there that's going to cause that cocking rack to be difficult to move. Let's clean off all that dirt. I'm inspecting that rack. I'm not expecting to find anything wrong with it. Very rarely is there any problem at all with those curved racks. I'm just cleaning this because that's the thing to do. It wouldn't make any difference to the function of the click stops, whether that was clean or not. I'll just rub a little bit of molybdenum on this rack, both edges and the back face, and that's just a smear. It just makes it look a little bit grey. Now the important thing here is to get our flash connection in. I want my piece of wood. There it is. I still haven't turned up my favourite tweezers, so I'll have to struggle with the rough ones I've got. So, the flash sync connection. To get that wire in place. Zoom back a bit, I think that's having trouble focusing. The tiny plastic insulator slug. And the screw. The screw bears on the plastic insulator bears on the wire and clamps it firmly to the flash terminal. So I cock the shutter so that it's easy to get the cocking rack into place. Cocking rack should just drop into the slot, and I can push the case onto the shutter. Just rotate that until the screw holes are aligned. We have one very short countersunk screw at the end. This screw has a sort of a washer built into it, leaving the screw head proud, and that screw head acts to locate the shutter firmly in the mount. Now I just need to get this curved detent in place, and I'm just checking that it does indeed provide detent for the aperture settings. So that shutter's complete.